Luca couldn't believe his eyes. The barn, that old building forgotten in the shade of the trees, had become something incredible, but the price he had to pay to reveal that secret was immensely higher than he could have ever imagined. In the meantime, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of our future stories. But now, enjoy. Marta and Luca were a couple like many others, but their bond was special. They lived in a small town in the heart of Tuscany, Arezzo, a place they had chosen to escape the chaos and frenzy of the city. Their home was a haven of peace, a corner of the world where they felt safe. Marta taught languages online and loved the tranquility of her new life. Luca, on the other hand, worked as a business consultant and often worked remotely, which allowed him to fully enjoy the serenity of the countryside. 10 years had passed since they had moved into that house, and every corner of their little world was filled with precious memories. One of these was the wooden sideboard that Marta had inherited from her beloved grandmother. That sideboard represented for her a deep connection with the past, a symbol of happy moments spent in childhood. The couple's life seemed perfect until that cursed night. An electrical fault had caused a devastating fire, which had quickly consumed their home. They had managed to save themselves, but everything they had accumulated over the years, including the precious cupboard, had been lost in the flames. That tragic event had left Marta with an unfillable void in her heart, while Luca desperately tried to find a way to ease his wife's pain. In an attempt to rebuild their lives, they decided to move to a new house, still in Arezzo, but in an even quieter and more secluded area. Here, among the green fields and tall trees, they found a house that emanated an irresistible charm. At the bottom of the garden was an old barn, abandoned and full of old objects left by the previous owners. Marta saw it as an unnecessary clutter, but Luca had glimpsed potential in that forgotten space. "Why don't we tear it down and turn this area into something useful?" Marta had suggested. Luca, however, had a different idea. He saw that barn as an opportunity, a project he could immerse himself in to distract his mind, and who knows, maybe create something meaningful. "Don't worry, love," Luca replied with a reassuring smile. "I have an idea for this place. It will be a surprise." Marta was skeptical, but in the end, she accepted, thinking that perhaps the project would help Luca overcome the trauma of the fire. So as the days went by, Luca became more and more involved in the barn. He spent hours in there, buying new tools, lumber, and other materials whose purpose he never revealed. Marta was curious, but Luca avoided giving her details, telling her that the place was still too messy and dirty to let her in. 3 years passed. The woman noticed that Luca seemed to have found a certain peace in his secret project, and she too, despite the pain she still felt for the loss of her house and belief, had begun to get used to their new life. Then came the day of their wedding anniversary. It was a special day, and Luca had planned everything down to the smallest detail. He had gone to the office as usual, but with his mind already set on the evening. He wanted to surprise Marta with a romantic dinner, and a surprise that he had prepared with so much love. But fate had other plans. That evening, while returning home, Luca was caught in a sudden storm. The roads, made slippery by the rain, turned into a death trap. Luca was driving carefully, but a moment of distraction was enough to cause the accident. His motorcycle skidded, and in an instant, his life was cut short. Marta received the news late in the evening, a phone call that would change her life forever. Her world collapsed in an instant. The man she loved, with whom she had shared every dream and every hope, was no longer there. That day, that was supposed to be dedicated to the celebration of their love, turned into the darkest day of her life. After the funeral, she returned home, alone. The house that had once been their refuge now felt like an empty shell. Every room reminded her of Luca, and the pain was unbearable. She spent days in silence, trying to make sense of what had happened. After a few weeks, the doorbell rang. Marta opened the door and found a package addressed to Luca. It was a delivery he had ordered before he died, a set of crystal glasses, identical to the ones they had lost in the fire. Marta couldn't understand the meaning of that gesture. She decided to go to the barn there, to find out what Luca had been doing all that time. She opened the doors hesitantly, expecting to find the mess Luca had told her about. But what she saw left her breathless. If this story has touched you so far, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for your support. The barn had been transformed into a perfect laboratory, every tool in its place, every shelf precisely ordered. But the thing that caught Marta's attention more than anything else was a cupboard, an exact replica of the one she had lost in the fire, built with love and dedication by Luca's hands. Tears began to flow down her face as she realized how much her husband had loved her. Luca, who had never shown much interest in carpentry, had learned that art only to recreate that piece of furniture that meant so much to Marta. That cupboard wasn't just a piece of furniture, it was a symbol of everything they had shared, a symbol of Luca's eternal love for her. Marta understood that the greatest gestures are not always seen in the light of day. Sometimes it is the hidden gestures, those done in silence and with love, that remain forever in the heart. Marta's life changed forever that day. Every time she entered the barn, she felt Luca's presence beside her, as if he was still there, watching over her. And the cupboard, that perfect replica, became the symbol of a love that not even death could break.